You've been praying, haven't you? Talking to heaven, whispering into the darkness, waiting for something, anything to answer back. But lately, all you've received is silence. A silence so deep, it echoes louder than words. You start to wonder if you've done something wrong, if maybe God has turned his face away, if somehow the grace that once felt so close has drifted beyond reach. You replay old prayers, remembering the moments when you used to feel him everywhere, in songs, in signs, in small coincidences that made you feel seen. But now, it's quiet, empty. And that emptiness hurts more than any rejection ever could. You walk through your days pretending to be fine, but inside you're asking, God, where are you? The truth, though, the part heaven wants you to understand, is that this silence isn't rejection. It's refinement. It's not God ignoring you. It's God preparing you. The silence you're hearing isn't absence. It's sacred construction. It's the sound of heaven rearranging your life in ways you can't yet see. And that's the thing about divine silence. It often comes not when you're far from purpose, but when you're standing right in the middle of it. Because silence is where God turns followers into warriors and believers into leaders. Right now, you're in that holy in-between space, the unseen workshop of transformation, where destiny gets shaped in shadows. You see, God's quiet seasons are not the voids we think they are. They are classrooms disguised as confusion. When heaven seems to pull back, it's never to abandon. It's to teach you how to stand on your own, to trust what he's already spoken, even when he says nothing more. Imagine a teacher during a final exam. They don't speak, not because they don't care, but because they've already given you everything you need. That's exactly what God is doing right now. His silence doesn't mean he's left you. It means he trusts you to apply what you've learned. You're not forgotten, you're being tested, not for punishment, but for promotion. The very fact that heaven went quiet is proof you've graduated from needing constant reassurance to walking by faith. It's the ultimate compliment in the spiritual realm. When God stops explaining himself, it means he's confident you'll still follow his lead, even when you can't hear his voice. But I know what you're thinking. Why does it have to feel so lonely? Because every chosen one walks through a season of isolation before the promise manifests. Look at Joseph, anointed, chosen but betrayed by his own blood, sold into slavery, thrown into prison, forgotten by those he helped. He must have prayed, cried, begged for answers, yet all he got in return was silence. And in that silence he learned something sacred, how to carry favor even in captivity, how to interpret dreams even when his own felt delayed. What if that's what God is doing with you? What if the pit you're in isn't punishment, it's protection? You keep asking why certain people walked away, why connections broke without reason, why it feels like the world suddenly grew cold around you. But what if heaven intentionally created that distance so you could see who you are without the noise, without the crowd, without the applause? There's something divine about being hidden. You see, when God hides you, he's not depriving you, he's preserving you. He's healing wounds that the world can't touch. You can't hear your new name in the chaos of old surroundings. The silence is surgery. It's where God removes everything toxic that you tried to call normal. It's where he takes your heart apart piece by piece so he can rebuild it stronger. You might feel like you're losing everything, but really, you're shedding everything that can't survive where you're going next. That's the painful beauty of being chosen. You don't get to stay where it's comfortable. And yes, sometimes the silence feels like death. It's the death of who you used to be, the death of old desires, old dreams, old versions of yourself that no longer fit your future. But death isn't the end for the chosen. It's transformation in disguise. Like a seed buried in the earth, everything goes dark before it breaks open. To the outside world, it looks like nothing is happening. But underneath the surface, heaven is working overtime. The roots are forming. The promise is germinating. The silence is just the soil covering your becoming. And that's what makes it sacred. It's hidden on purpose. God's most powerful work happens in the dark. Think about Jesus in the tomb. The world thought it was over, but in silence, salvation was being born. That's the rhythm of divine timing. When everything seems quiet, that's when heaven is busiest. You're in that space now, where nothing makes sense, but everything is shifting beneath the surface. You've been stripped, emptied, brought to your knees, and you're wondering, what's left of me? But that's exactly what God needs, your surrender, because it's only in emptiness that He can fill you. You've been praying for clarity, but heaven is saying, before I show you what's next, I need to make sure you're strong enough to carry it. The silence is strength training. It's where your spirit learns to hold weight without crumbling. It's where faith stops being theory and becomes muscle. And maybe right now, you're caught between what you lost and what hasn't yet come, trying to make sense of a story that feels unfinished. Maybe you're tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of pretending that this silence doesn't sting. But I need you to hear this. The silence isn't forever. It's temporary, but it's necessary. Because what's forming inside you will one day speak so loud, you'll understand why heaven had to go quiet first. And as you sit there, listening to nothing, feeling forgotten, a deeper truth is rising just beneath the surface of your pain. Something you can't quite name yet, but you can feel it stirring. The sense that maybe, just maybe, this silence is not the end of something, but the beginning of something divine. Because somewhere deep within that silence, heaven has been speaking a different language, not of words, but of transformation. You see, silence is not emptiness. It's a sacred cocoon where the old you dissolves and the true you emerges. And right now, God is writing chapters that can't be seen, refining motives, purifying intentions, aligning your heart with divine timing. The silence you're walking through is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to define you. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed breakthrough, every night you lay awake wondering if you were forgotten. Those moments are the secret architecture of your destiny. God has been building something that noise could never build, depth. Because when heaven goes quiet, you start listening differently. You stop chasing signs and start noticing patterns. You stop begging for answers and start embodying faith. It's in this place that you finally learn that silence is not punishment. It's partnership. Heaven isn't rejecting you. It's trusting you to stand still long enough to let the storm settle, so the reflection in the water finally becomes clear. And now, as your spirit grows weary and your patience thins, you're beginning to understand, maybe this stillness isn't silence after all. Maybe it's God whispering in ways you never recognized before. Think about Job. He lost everything, and in the quiet aftermath of chaos, he begged for an explanation. But God didn't answer his questions. He revealed himself instead. That's what happens in silence. It's not about information, it's about revelation. God doesn't owe explanations to those he's elevating. He owes them presence, and that's what you've been feeling. Not the absence of God, but the subtle shaping of his hand over your life. You've been learning to sense him without seeing, to hear him without sound, to trust him without proof. That's divine maturity. That's why he stopped talking in the way you expected, because he's teaching you to know him beyond your emotions. He's upgrading your faith from dependent to divine. And yes, that hurts, because it feels like death to not hear him the way you used to. But that death is resurrection in motion. Every chosen one must go through it. It's the death of dependency, the burial of the old frequency. You're not losing your connection to God. You're being tuned to a higher one. The silence was his way of tuning your spirit to the wavelength of your calling. And when you emerge, you won't just know about God, you'll carry his voice within you. You'll speak from wisdom, not wounds. You'll lead from alignment, not anxiety. You'll see that this silence was actually the womb of your new season. Heaven hides before it reveals. Before David wore the crown, he wore the wilderness. Before Joseph touched the throne, he touched betrayal. Before Jesus resurrected, he lay silent in the tomb. The divine pattern has always been the same. Silence, then sound, stillness, then shift, hiding, then revealing. You are in that middle moment, right before the unveiling. That's why everything feels heavy. Because you're giving birth to a new version of yourself. The contractions of silence are proof that something divine is crowning. And I know, it's been long. You've waited through the dark. You've questioned your worth, doubted your purpose, cried into pillows that absorbed prayers no one else could hear. But heaven heard them all, and what you thought was God's delay was actually divine sequencing, timing everything perfectly so that when he moves, it won't just be restoration, it'll be resurrection. The very things that fell silent will sing again. You'll see doors open that once slammed in your face. You'll meet people who speak the same spiritual language as you. You'll wake up one morning and realize you're no longer surviving. The silence, you've become fluent in it. You'll understand that what was hidden was never lost. It was being made holy. Because silence, for the chosen, is sanctification. It's the furnace where false identities burn away and truth is forged. In their place, every unanswered moment taught you something about who you really are: strong, chosen, refined, royal. You may not have heard his voice, but heaven never stopped working in your favor. The tests, the delays, the betrayals, all of it was coordination, not coincidence. God has been aligning your story with precision. And now the energy is shifting. You're about to step into the part of your journey where the silence breaks, where the stillness starts to hum with divine movement. You'll notice signs again, not because they returned, but because you've become still enough to see them clearly. You'll realize God never stopped speaking. He was just changing the frequency. And now that you've learned to hear him in the quiet, no storm will ever drown him out again. This is the revelation moment, the unveiling of heaven's secret. The silence wasn't rejection, it was recognition. You were trusted with silence because you're no longer a child in faith. You're a carrier of the divine. God went quiet, not to punish you, but to graduate you. He's been shaping your anointing in shadows, so that when the spotlight comes, it won't destroy you. That's why the silence had to be long. It had to strip everything false, expose everything fragile, and strengthen everything eternal. And now, beloved, the time has come. The stillness that once haunted you is about to speak. You'll feel it in small ways first, peace returning, creativity reigniting, the sense of divine movement around you. Doors will open quietly at first, but their impact will echo loudly, because what heaven births in silence always carries power. You've endured, you've trusted, you've stayed when others left, and that faith has not gone unnoticed. The heavens are about to speak again, and this time the voice you hear won't just be God's, it'll be your own, aligned with his. You'll move with divine confidence, love without fear, act without hesitation, because now you know the truth. Silence was never the absence of love, it was the proof of it. Only those God deeply trusts are allowed to experience his quiet side. And you did. You walked through it, raw and real, and you didn't give up. That's why the angels are stirring, the wind is shifting, and your spirit feels it. That divine nudge that whispers, it's time. The silence has served its purpose. You're no longer who you were when it began. The noise will return soon. Opportunities, blessings, alignment. But you will never forget what the silence taught you. That God was there all along. That you were never alone. That what you thought was rejection was really redirection. So stand tall, chosen one. Breathe deep. The season of silence is closing, and the voice of heaven is about to rise within you. The quiet has ended, and the time has come for you to speak what the silence taught.